All right, now we want to check in with One America's Matt Schuck, who's live in downtown Baltimore. Matt?
All right, we're currently live in Baltimore City Hall, where just a few moments ago we had protesters come down here seeking a protest for the death of Freddie Gray. And standing with me is a Baltimore resident, Jason Rodriguez. Jason, what brings you down here?
Well, one, I have an organization called Baltimore Cop Watch that me and my wife started back in 2009 after being victims of police brutality and a home invasion. Actually, 2 officers engaged in the deprivation of our civil rights under the color of law, which is, you know, that's a U.S. code violation.
What happened in that situation?
Well, my wife, for the longest, we lived in the housing projects, and me and my wife had separated for some time, and in the process, my wife got injured, and so my wife was kind of out of work, couldn't work, had major leg surgery, was disabled. And in the process, I would come over and try to help her out as much as possible. On this particular day, because we live in a quote-unquote high-crime community, the officers were out there, I guess, doing their little routine, checking the neighborhood, searching for criminals or drug sellers or whatever have you. And so my wife, who'd been in the community for 14 years, never had any housing violations, never had any complaints. She used to do a little icy cup and funnel cakes out of her house. And this was like for years, iced tea, lemonade, little simple stuff, sometimes bags of chips for the kids. So in this particular day, the Boys and Girls Club that was right across the street from her house in the housing project, they came over and they bought like 30 icy cups. And I came over to do some chores, and I was upstairs basically cutting the dog's hair, all right? So what happened was, while my wife was out back basically selling icy cups, these officers basically, you know, they thinking something else is going on, and they rush the house and basically scare everybody. So everybody darts off. My wife locks the door. I'm upstairs. I don't really know what's going on at the time. So all of a sudden, I hear like a big bang, 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 like somebody trying to break the house down. And what I realize is I'm thinking it's the kids at the time. You know, because she's selling icy cups, and sometimes the kids with that sugar, you know, they want to get that sugar and the chips and stuff. Yeah. So a lot of times what would end up happening was they would try to tear her door down. So I'm thinking it's one of them, so I really didn't kind of pay it no mind. And I hear the door open and close, so I just to make sure, because it kind of sounded a little bit awkward, I called down to her to find out what's going on. And at that time, I hear a male voice telling me, "Sir, come downstairs." So I'm like, okay, so I come downstairs. I'm naked. Mm-hmm. And a reason why I was naked at the time was because I was cutting a white toy poodle. Yeah. My wife had a white toy poodle. I'm cutting the dog's hair. I come downstairs, and the officer's basically telling me that you're selling drugs. Where's the stash? I know you're selling drugs. And I'm like, no, sir, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, first of all, I said, she sells icy cups and funnel cakes. I said, matter of fact, there's a jar full of money right there. There's the funnel cakes inside the freezer. I'm like, you know, we're not doing nothing here.
So what happened next?
What ended up happening was he ended up taking me upstairs. He claims he was taking me upstairs to get dressed, but again, I wasn't a resident of the house. I had no clothes there. My clothes was downstairs. Yeah. I originally took my clothes off downstairs. He takes me upstairs. I'm interrogated for at least maybe 10 to 15 minutes upstairs against my will. And I'm telling them at the same time that something's not right here. Like, I don't think that you should be doing this.
Is this what brought you down here today?
Yeah, because during that incident, we get into an altercation, all right? He ends up attacking me. He's on top of me, all right? My family comes running upstairs. They were in the house at the time. My family comes running upstairs. His partner comes running upstairs. Everybody comes running upstairs and witnesses this officer on top of me just dropping bombs on me while I'm naked, laying in the bed with him on top of me. And my wife is pleading out to him. My mother-in-law is pleading out to him. My niece is pleading out to him. And his partner comes in the room, and he looks because he wants to make sure it's not my wife getting ready to attack him or somebody. He looks, he sees his partner, he says, "Tase him, tase him." So I got my eyes rolling in the back of my head. I got blood spitting out everywhere. I got lacerations and cuts inside my mouth.
So you were tased at this time?
No. She looks at me with the taser. I'm sitting there pleading to her, "Please don't, bap, bap. Tase me, bap, bap. I didn't, bap, bap. Do nothing, like, bap. Help, bap, bap." And my wife is tapping her on the shoulder. "Please don't tase my husband. You see what your partner's doing. Please don't tase my husband."
Well,
She disobeyed a direct order because he was a sergeant. And he gave a direct order to tase me. And she looked me in my eyes as my eyes was rolling back and I was blacking out and I was pleading for help. And she pulled out that taser and she pulled out that little red X thing and put it on my chest and tried to, energize me and couldn't do it. Why? Because she didn't see a threat. She didn't see a threat, not of a citizen like she was trained.
Do you think there's been a long disconnect between the Baltimore residents and the Baltimore City Police Department?
It's like an occupying force. When I read stories about South Africa and apartheid, it's the only thing that you can kind of compare things. We have a Baltimore apartheid. There's no other way to look at it. When you look at the economic distresses and the way that they engage these communities instead of trying to uplift these communities, what else is there to think?
And all the events coming up throughout the week, it's kind of like a tale of two Baltimores. You have the Baltimore that everybody saw on Monday and Tuesday with the violent protests, and then now everything's remained largely peaceful and community-oriented. What do you think happened that it changed focus?
It's not so much that it changed focus. It's still volatile right now. People are still upset right now. People are still suffering right now. I'm suffering. I lost a friend yesterday. He was murdered in Baltimore City while we're sitting out here protesting for Freddie Gray and for Anthony Anderson and Tyrone West and all the other victims of police brutality from our atrocious behavior of our Baltimore City Police Department. We're still having murders. Within less than 3 weeks, we already have about a dozen murders already. 2 shootings happened at the same time while our city leaders were all together trying to have this summit and this brunch this afternoon. They're sitting there filling their bellies up and having more summits, more meetings, instead of trying to infuse these communities with some sort of economic impact money to uplift them so that we could try to start to build out of the mess that we're in. Because right now, we're still suffering. Because like I told you, I'm dealing with my friend that just died. And then on top of that, I'm dealing with the fact that I'm a victim of police brutality. I'm dealing with the fact that I walk through my neighborhood. I got to worry about whether or not my community is going to kill me, or whether or not the law enforcement that's supposed to be protecting me, that is sworn to uphold the law, whether they're going to kill me.
Do you think the police officer in Freddie Gray's death should be indicted?
Of course. And what's interesting about Freddie Gray's case, it just shows the deep corruption. It shows this rabbit hole down to Wonderland that people just don't realize all the stuff going down to Wonderland there is within this police department. The corruption runs deep. Anytime you're sitting there, you have a Baltimore City Police Department.
How do you think the mayor has handled?
Listen, you got a Baltimore City Police Department that's falsifying reports on many cases, and they've been caught. In my case, we went to court. We were charged that day. We were held without our will that day. I was beaten to a pulp, and I was denied medical attention. No matter how much I pleaded for medical attention, I was told if I played that crap, that more charges was going to be put on me. That's exactly what the officer said. I was denied medical attention. I was taken to Southern District where I was cleaned up. I was taken to the bathroom. At first, I thought I was going to get plungered because you know all the stories you hear about them taking you into a back room and you end up getting jammed up even more. So first, I'm thinking I'm going somewhere to get plungered or beat up or belly clubbed. He takes me into the bathroom and tries to clean me up. They were trying to hide it so that when I get down to central processing, they wouldn't reject me. And then when I got down to central processing, the nurses and the doctors was like, why are you here when you're bleeding profusely? You should be at the hospital. And the first thing the police officers say is, no, he's playing a game. He's just trying to get out from going up into the cell. That's all. He's just playing a game. That's all. He ain't getting no medical attention. That's the kind of stuff that the community goes through all the time.
But we only have a few seconds left. What is the one thing you want America to know?
That there's 2 Baltimores, straight up, 2 Baltimores, straight up. You got the Palace and you got us. Most of these communities have been distressed since the early 1900s.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Back to you in the studio, Matt Schuck reporting from Baltimore, One America News.